What's up, y'all? Just wanted to make a quick video about what it's like to own a motorcycle in college. Right now I've actually graduated and I haven't ridden this guy in a while. This is a 2008 Harley Sportster 1200 1200. So yeah, it's a pretty big V-twin in here, but it's slow, it's unreliable, and I wish I made some better decisions. So we're gonna dive into it. First of all, why even get into motorcycle riding at college? I've always just been a fan of cars, of motorcycles. I also just, I wanted to feel that freedom. I wanted to see what it was like to. But it's really daunting, especially if you don't have anyone in your family that has ridden a motorcycle. If you're driving a car, you can just learn on your dad's car. But if you're riding a motorcycle and your pops doesn't own a motorcycle, what do? I did a lot of research and I figured out, the best way you should go about it. You should take the motorcycle safety course. It might be called a bunch of different things, but if you just search like motorcycle license course, it'll probably come up. I think the one I took was $235-ish, somewhere around there. What it is, you need to study and take a test. Once you pass that study test, it'll be like a 2-day or 3-day experience. You have a bunch of different riders all together, and they pretty much start you on some tiny Honda Groms or some really old Suzuki's, like 125cc, and they just teach you, like, this is the clutch, this is the clutch, this is the gas, and some of those basic things. You start off first with letting that clutch go, riding in the friction zone, all of those items. Now, when I went into that, I had already known how to drive. I already knew how to drive a manual car because my pops and we rented one out. He used to drive a manual car back in his day, so he taught me how to drive a manual car, and I think that translated really well here. I also knew how to ride a bicycle. If you don't have those two basic skills, it's going to be really difficult, because trying to grasp the concept of shifting gears for the first time while you're also balancing and also figuring out, like, where do I put my legs, right? And also all of those steps. I mean, these are heavy. Even if you get like a small Honda Grom, they're still pretty heavy, like 300, 400 something pounds, right? This one's, I think, 650 pounds. So they're pretty heavy, right? And it takes some getting used to, because your bike's probably like, 30 pounds, right? A lot lighter. And another thing about the motorcycle course is a lot of the people have already been riding motorcycles for a bunch of years, like maybe 10 years, 15 years, and they're just only now getting their license. Like, they've already been riding just illegally without a license. So you'll have people that like go so quick, and then the instructors kind of move you real quick. Even though I had experience driving a manual transmission, I still felt like I was struggling. I didn't get left behind or anything, but it was still like a challenge for me. So you might even want to see if one of your friends owns a motorcycle. Maybe they can help you out a little bit there. But yeah, that's the first step, getting that course. After that course, you'll get a license with a motorcycle endorsement, and then you can just ride. The crazy thing in the US, your first motorcycle can be a Hayabusa. Like, you can just buy a liter bike that can just kill you. In fact, that's happened a lot, or so I hear from dealerships and from my friends, where they hear about someone who, right after they get their endorsement, they go and they buy a bike that's way too fast for them, and they end up dying on the way home from the dealership. So that's pretty sad. You might want to watch out for that. In terms of the bike that I bought, I do regret buying this Harley Davidson. So I already knew, it's a bad bike. Like, it's not a good bike to own, for a bunch of reasons. First, it's loud. It's really loud, and I really should have thought that through, because it gets in my own way. But overall, Harley Davidsons, they're not very reliable. The parts can be expensive, and it's not even that fast. I think the reliability is the big issue. I went into buying it also because I wanted to learn more about fixing up a motorcycle, maintaining my motorcycle. So I figured, whatever happens. So probably within the first 3-ish months of owning it, the battery went dead. Now, that's not, I guess, Harley's problem, but still, the battery died, and at that point I was busy with tests and everything. I didn't want to stress about fixing it myself. And it just didn't start one morning. So I was just like, you know what, I don't even have the materials, the tools to diagnose what's going on. So I just sent it back to the shop, and that cost like $300 for something that was covered under warranty. And I was like, you know what, never doing that again. Every other issue that happens with the bike, I'm gonna fix it myself. And of course, the next issue happened where the clutch mechanism, if you've never owned a Harley, this is great to know. The clutch mechanisms in these things, they're like grenades. In fact, some people affectionately refer to them as the grenade plate. And what happens is there's a plate in there that's just very prone to breaking. Like there's some bolts holding two plates together, and those bolts will fly off, and it'll just wreck your transmission. Wreck your clutch, excuse me. So I had to buy new clutch plates, and then I had to do all of the labor for it, which is actually, I remember when I finally got that thing fixed and the bike started and I could ride it again and I could use the clutch again. Like I just felt so much elation, because I struggled so hard with it. I had to research so many things, look through so many YouTube videos to try to figure out how to do this. And that moment was probably one of the greatest moments of satisfaction I've experienced in my life. But in hindsight, man, I should have just bought like a Honda Rebel or something, or even I think I would have been happier with the Grom, because at the end of the day, right, this thing's broken right now. This thing doesn't start right now. I've been thinking about it. I mean, it's probably the battery again. So I might end up just buying a new battery, or running through some tests now that I got this garage set up. But it's always a headache with this motorcycle. So if you're going to get a motorcycle, I'd recommend something Japanese, for sure, because those are cheaper and you can resell them. The other big thing, if you're getting a motorcycle during college, you got to think about where are you going to keep it when you're coming home, right? I'm assuming, at least for some of you, right, for Christmas break or for summer break, you're not going to be living at your college town. So there's been a few times where I drove this the 2 hours from my college back home. I remember one time in particular where it was like 30 degrees outside, and I was in like 3 jackets, and I had my gloves and I had my helmet, but I was still like freezing on the bike, and I had to stop like every 30 minutes just because I got so cold. And so that's one of the challenges of riding a bike. I did have some friends in Gainesville that said that I could keep the bike at their place, but I also wanted to ride it when I was home. But it becomes a hassle. It becomes another thing you got to think about. And when this bike broke down, I had to rent a U-Haul, because I had to get it home somehow, or I had to relocate it somehow. I actually tried selling the bike, but because it didn't start, there was some complications with the sell process. They offered me $2,000 to purchase the bike, and at that point I was honestly like, I've already dumped so much money into this bike. But if I had just bought like a more reliable bike, I could have resold it and probably come out with more money than this. So let's talk about this bike in particular. As much as I hate her, I love her, right? It's as much as I hate you, I've had a lot of smiles on this bike, and that's the weird thing about riding a motorcycle when you're in college. It's one of the worst decisions you can make financially, but it'll put such a smile on your face, and I don't regret doing it. But I'm only saying that in hindsight because I didn't die. If I had died, which even some of my friends in Gainesville, they've gotten in so tragic. They've gotten in motorcycle accidents. Now, thankfully, they didn't lose their lives, but it was some serious surgeries and huge medical expenses. And a lot of young riders, especially in the state of Florida, you don't need insurance to ride a motorcycle. And so that's what I was doing. I was just riding the motorcycle on a prayer. And it got me here. I mean, I'm still alive. And maybe it's good that she broke down so much. Maybe she was trying to save me from getting into some of those accidents. But it's really like, as much freedom as you get, the trade-off is that you have zero protection. If a car doesn't see you and merges into your lane, you don't have that time to maneuver sometimes. So it's really just, it's a death trap. I mean, this one is a slow death trap. So honestly, maybe maybe not so bad. But I think college is a good time to get a motorcycle. You're learning so much about yourself, and just thinking back to the moments where I felt like my life didn't have purpose, or I felt like, just so many things were on my mind. I'd get on the motorcycle and I'd just drive down a back road, and I'd see the sunset and I'd feel the wind. It is just a completely different experience to driving a car. Like, it is so completely different. It's making me want to fix her right now. In fact, talking about this, it really is a whole different world when you're on a motorcycle. I mean, I've never felt so free until that. But yeah. So I guess the takeaways are, if you really want to start with that safety course, buy a reliable motorcycle. I recommend a Japanese motorcycle. Really do your research, and honestly, just get insurance. It's so stupid to ride without insurance, especially in a world that's so dangerous, and especially when medical expenses cost so much. But if you do get insurance, you might as well buy 2 motorcycles, because that's how much it's gonna cost. So yeah. Oh, I guess one more thing I talk about, how come I was able to afford this motorcycle. So in college, I picked up a few jobs, one of which was working with the residence hall, and that allowed me to live there and work there, and it pretty much paid off all of my living expenses. And then I also picked up another job at a grocery store, which gave me enough money to save up for this. But now I'm thinking about selling it, because it's so difficult to own a motorcycle when you don't have a garage. Partly because it requires a lot of maintenance. I think that's what some people don't understand. Motorcycles require a lot more maintenance than cars, and you're gonna be working on it at least a little bit. And then the other part is storing it, because I've also had friends that got their motorcycles stolen, especially if you own like a nice new sports bike. People will just pick it up, put it into neutral, and just walk it onto their trailer. So yeah, it's tough. It's real tough. There's a lot of hassles, and I don't know. I mean, of course, in hindsight, it was worth the freedom. But if something like that had happened to me, where I got my motorcycle stolen, or where I had gotten into an accident, it definitely would not be worth it. So I say college is the best time. I already said that, but honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it's a better thing to do when you're like in your midlife crisis. So maybe when I'm in my midlife crisis, you'll see another video. But yeah, that's what it's like.